Okay, so how do you start a seven-figure business in a weekend? That is what Noah Kagan teaches us in his book titled Million Dollar Weekend. Now, as someone who is a software engineer who's actively in the trenches trying to build a business outside my full-time job, I wanted to see if Noah's tips actually work for someone with such limited time like me. So, in this video, I'm going to share with you the 5 key lessons I learned from this book and how I actually apply them in my own business journey. And at the end, I'll share some of my own thoughts and tell you if it's actually worth your time to read the whole thing. If you're new here, hello, my name is James, I'm a software engineer and entrepreneur, and I'm on a mission to build my best life. On this channel, I take you along on my journey and share the lessons, systems, and habits I've learned over the years to help you do that too. Let's go. So, the first big lesson I took away is this idea of now, not how. Essentially, it means stop overthinking and just start executing today with whatever you have. Honestly, I've been stuck in the trap of thinking I'm making progress just by watching some YouTube videos or reading books for years. I avoided starting this YouTube channel forever because I thought I had to be an expert first. I told myself I needed the perfect camera, I needed to master the art of storytelling, and I needed to be perfect at presenting. But eventually, I just had enough of waiting. I realized that learning how to do the thing was just a fancy way of staying safe and comfortable. So I just decided to just jump in and take the leap of faith. And let me tell you, when I started, I knew literally nothing. I didn't know how to make a thumbnail, I didn't know how to do lighting, I didn't even know what color grading was. But just by starting, I've been forced to learn these things as I go along. And the truth is, I've made way more progress in a few weeks than I did in the years I spent researching. The book argues that how is just a distraction from now. And when you're in the trenches, you realize that the best teacher isn't a book, but instead it's actually doing the thing and working through it. Second lesson is about finding your freedom number. Noah suggests finding the specific monthly revenue you need as your income so that your dream life feels like a math problem rather than some vague fantasy. Now, I'll be honest, if you're someone who is still just trying to go from 0 to 1, this feels a bit disconnected. It's hard to get excited about a freedom number when you're still at 0. And I think this is where there's a bit of a gap between a millionaire like Noah and someone actually starting from scratch, who the book is aimed at. If you're at 0 and your freedom number is, say, $4,000, then staring at this $4,000 target can actually feel super overwhelming. If you're in that position, what I've found to be super helpful is to turn this output-oriented target into an input target. You're not able to control the output or the outcome of your actions, but you can definitely control your inputs, which eventually would lead to the output that you desire, while being way more realistically attainable. For example, your target could be making one high-quality YouTube video per week instead of aiming to make $4,000 or 10,000 subscribers. That way, you have a realistic target to work towards each week instead of feeling overwhelmed and just quitting. And even if you did insist on having a revenue goal, your first goal should be to hit just one singular dollar, because the gap of going from 0 to 1 is actually just that big. Now, this third lesson might be the single most important one in the whole book. Validation without the commitment of paying is actually worth nothing. I cannot tell you how much I wish I had learned this when I started building apps. You can spend years of your life building something that no one is willing to pay for, which is why validating your business idea is so incredibly important. I have personally struggled with this because even though I thought I was doing validation for my apps, I was not doing it the way that Noah had suggested. For most of my apps, what I would do is launch a nice little promo video on Twitter, or I would start a waiting list for the app through Reddit. Then, when I see a ton of interest through likes, comments, and signups, and so on, I would take that as my validation and just go ahead with building the app. But most of the time, this interest wouldn't actually turn into money. The crucial mistake here, which Noah points out in the book, is, I quote, "There is a big difference between what people say and what people do. Everyone's interested until they have to pay." And Noah's way to get around that is to ask for money upfront before building the product, while setting clear expectations to the customer when they can actually expect the product to be made or delivered. Now, the way I'm applying this advice to my own business is that instead of building first, then asking for money later, I will ask for the money first and then deliver later. That way, if no one pays, then I can immediately understand the idea is not validated and I would not spend all that time building it. Practically speaking, this could be done by setting up a simple landing page, for example, with a paid waiting list. And look, Noah doesn't mention this, but with AI tools nowadays, there's basically no excuse not to do real validation for your business ideas. Because you can literally whip up a landing page in a weekend to validate the idea instead of spending thousands on outsourcing developers before the business has even taken off. All right, lesson number 4 is a lesson I learned the hard way. Audience ownership beats audience size always. This is the idea that you don't actually own your social media audience until they are on your email list. I spent an entire year grinding to build a following on Twitter. I reached a point where I thought I had traction, but then suddenly the algorithm changed and everything came crashing down. Just like that, literally overnight, my views were nuked. My reach disappeared and it felt like I had lost everything I worked for. Noah emphasizes that an email list of 100 people is more valuable than 10,000 followers because you actually own that connection. When you rely on a platform, you're building on rented land. If the landlord changes the rules, you're out of luck. So after that Twitter experience, I really resonated deeply with this point. If you're building a brand for your business, the social media platform should just act as the funnel, and the email list is the actual final destination for your audience connections. Okay, so the 5th lesson is to be a guide, not a guru, when growing your social media presence. This is something that really resonated with me because it's why I love watching creators like Ali Abdaal and Matt Davella. They aren't acting like they have all of the answers, they are just sharing what they're learning with us. I like this point because I think a lot of us feel like we can't start because we aren't the expert yet. We think we need an entire PhD in business before we can talk about business. But Noah's point is that you just need to be one step ahead of the person you're helping. You don't need to be at the finish line, you just need to be a few miles further down the road than the person behind you. Finding your unique angle and just being the guide through the trenches that you and others are trying to get through is way more relatable. And it takes the pressure off of being perfect and allows you to just be helpful. And on top of that, people tend to be way more perceptive to advice from someone they perceive as a friend or as a guide rather than an expert. To wrap this up, I want to share some of my own thoughts around this book. This book is super fun to read because of Noah's really casual style of writing. It almost feels like you're sitting right across him, having a chat with him at a desk as you read the book. Also, I like that it doesn't get into the nitty-gritty details and the theories of business, and just gives you the practical stuff. I will say though, that getting through this book was still a bit frustrating for me, because I found most of it to be filled with anecdotes and self-promotion, which felt really strange while reading. If you're someone who needs motivation and just loves reading success stories, I would definitely recommend you read the whole book. But if you just want those golden nuggets and actionable lessons, then I hope this video got you covered. Oh, and by the way, if you have a business idea but you're still struggling to actually sit at your desk and start the work, I have a video right over here where I share the exact system I use to break down these giant dreams into manageable daily tasks so you can get there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.